Now, a lot of people get hung up on the price that they're actually paying for foam, and I always get a kick out of it because they care more about what they're actually paying for the set of foam than what they're yielding from that foam. So we're going to run through this estimating guide and talk about the importance of yield and the things that can affect the yield. But when as I'm sure most of you know, when spray foam systems are sold, they're sold in sets. The vast majority of us pay for sets of drums, and a few of the big players spend or purchase foam in kits or sets of totes. But they're always sold as a set because you have the A side and the B side. And the price of that set is based on the weight of the chemical liquid that are in those drums. When sprayed, the liquids are combined and mixed together through the spraying process, and that's what forms the solid mass of your spray foam. The amount of finished foam that can be created from that set, whether they're drums or whether they're totes, it's all the same. The amount of solid foam that you get out of each set, that is your yield. And that's far more important than what you're actually paying for a set of foam. And people get so much hung up on that. That yield is measured in board feet. 1 board foot is 1 foot by 1 foot. So a 1 foot by 1 foot square by 1 inch in depth. When the foam is sprayed at a thickness greater than that 1 inch, you just take the number of square feet and multiply it by the number of inches that you're spraying. So if you still have that 1 inch by 1 inch square foot and you're spraying a 3-inch application, then that would be 3 board feet because you have 1 foot by 1 foot by 3 inches. To calculate how much foam you're actually required to have to complete the job, we'll run through a little thing here, but you take, and I'll use this project that we had. The numbers don't exactly correlate with what the actual figures were. I just kind of simplified it down so that we can run through this practice together, but the principle's the same. And the principle's the same whether you're spraying roofs or whether you're spraying interior foam insulation. It's all figured the same. You multiply the square feet of the area that you're going to be spraying by the thickness of the foam. So in this demonstration, we're 50 foot wide by 100 feet long, which comes out to 5,000 square feet. So you take the area of the application, which is 5,000 square feet, and in this particular instance, it's a 3-inch application. So we take it 5,000 by 3 inches, and that will give you the amount of foam that is required for you to complete that job, which is 15,000 board feet. 5,000 times 3 inches, 15,000 board feet. So you have the 15,000 board feet. Now, this number is going to differ from contractor to contractor, but again, in my opinion, it doesn't really matter what you're paying for it. Contractors are going to get discounts if they spray huge volumes. I always get a kick out of contractors that jump around from supplier to supplier. They're not really true. They don't really stick true or build any sort of relationship. They just kind of whore themselves out to see who can sell them foam the cheapest. At the end of the day, they're not focusing on the things that actually impact the yield that they're getting from those drums. And some of them are out of their control. A lot of them are in their control, and we'll run through those at the end of this practice. But in this particular instance, we used a cost of chemical, the cost of the chemical that you're paying for one set of drums, $3,500. So you take $3,500 divided by your estimated yield per set. Now, this is a figure that is generally the same amongst manufacturers. You can kind of figure, again, we're using a roofing example, but you can plug in your own figures for interior foam. We're using 2,700 board feet if you're doing, interior foam, like a 2-pound closed cell foam. That number would be greater, obviously. Typically with 2.8-pound foam, you average anywhere between 2,500 and 3,000 board feet per set. But in this instance, we're using 2,700 board feet. So you take 3,500 divided by the 2,700, and that gives you the $1.29 cost per board foot that you will be paying to install this job. And then finally, you have your cost per, now that you have your cost per board foot and the amount of foam that's required for the job, you take those two numbers, easy math, you plug them in, $1.29 that you're paying, that'll be your cost for the job, times the 15,000 board feet that's required for the foam on the job, which will give you the cost of the total amount of chemicals that you should be paying by the end of the job, which is $19,350. Now, if you know from experience what yield to expect from any given manufacturer's spray foam system, use your own figures to plug them into that to figure. Those are just used as an example. Typically, like I said, 2.8 pound roofing foam, you can expect anywhere from 2,500 to 3,000 board feet per set. With a 2 pound interior foam, 3,600 to 4,000. And I don't really spray, I've never sprayed a half pound foam, so I don't really know what to expect from that. But at the end of the day, the principles are all the same. There are a lot of exterior factors that are totally in your control that will effectively impact your end result. Because if you take a, the difference between 2,500 and 3,000 board feet at the end of the day is around 16% yield difference. So let's say you pay $3,500, pay for a set of foam. That's $3,500 that you're putting into that drum. And if you just willy-nilly spray it without taking any of these into consideration, at the end of the day, that's a difference of tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of dollars, depending on your volume per year, that you could be missing out on if you're not taking care of just a few of these minor things. The factors which reduce the yield are applying the foam in multiple lifts, applying to cold surfaces, applying foam in cold temperatures, ambient temperatures, applying foam with the chemicals not at the proper temperatures. Rough surfaces will eat up yield. Chemicals that are not proper ratio, applying foam overhead with more fallout, applying foam in windy conditions on a roof, that's a big one. Varying thicknesses, the skill and experience of your applicator, loss of blowing agent, whether you let the foam get cold in storage or you're using out of date foam, those will reduce the blowing agent, or like I said before, inadequate chemical storage conditions. Now, factors which might increase yield, especially this first one for guys like me that are in higher altitudes, high altitude will actually slightly increase your yield, but it will also decrease the closed cell count, and you have to be careful with that, but that's a whole nother topic. Applying foam to hot surfaces will help increase your yield. That's why on roofing, a lot of guys prime, so that darker temperature increases the temperature of the substrate that you're spraying to. Hot ambient temperatures will affect it. Proper equipment setup, use of a regulator tree on resin drums, an experienced applicator to help minimize overspray, and spraying even depths, and then spraying the foam systems that are designed for the proper temperatures and geographic location that you're at. So a lot of these things might be really obvious, but in many instances, what my experience the past 10 years has told me is that people don't pay any attention to it. They simply are focused on that upfront dollar amount, but don't pay any attention to the controls on the back end that are totally in their control, that will directly impact the amount of yield that they're getting out of each set.